Today we're diving into the secret world of congressional stock trades. Ever wondered what stocks the most powerful are buying and selling? Well, meet Winston, my golden retriever I adopted when he was a little puppy. He's got a nose for sniffing out the best stock tips, and today he's helped me uncover some fascinating trades by none other than Congress members themselves. Let's get started. Imagine having insider knowledge on the stock market. What if I told you that some of the most profitable trades are being made by those who have access to the most sensitive information? Today, we're focusing on the trades of one of the most profitable politicians to trade ever, Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi.
But first, let's take a step back and look at the history of insider trading in Congress and how corruption on Wall Street and Washington have worked together throughout history. There is a reason I run this community. Slight side note. We're up, Winston and me, over 50% on our teaching portfolio this year already. We trade. We did over 100% in 2022. We did over 100% in 2023, return on capital employed. And in July already we're up 10%. Next week, I'll be hosting the first ever 3-day masterclass to show you how we do it. So for 3 days at 8 p.m. New York time, I will teach you for an hour each day what trade to set up and when, how to automate profit taking and risk management so you too can trade in just 3 hours per week, so you got more time to, play on the beach with Winston. Visit felixprehn.org/masterclass to get your free spot now. It's completely free of charge. Part of our mission to make 1 million people financially free. Let's get back to the story though. Insider trading and corruption are not a new phenomenon. They've been part of the financial landscape since the early days of the United States. Let's start with William Dewar, the first individual to use knowledge gained from his official position to become entangled in speculative trading. In 1789, upon the establishment of the US Department of the Treasury, William was appointed Assistant Secretary under the first Secretary of the Treasury. William had the distinction of being the first inside trader. He used his insider connections to speculate in the newly issued debt of this new government that you had just formed, but he overreached. He borrowed heavily to finance his scheme, and when the bubble burst, the New York City economy crashed and William was nearly disemboweled by an enraged mob. They weren't quite quick enough to catch him, unfortunately. He did, however, die in debtor's prison a few years later. Is that going to happen to Nancy? Very unlikely. Fast forward to the late 19th and early 20th century, and we see J.P. Morgan & Co. as the world's most powerful bank. Hang on, aren't they the most powerful bank right now? Yeah, stuff doesn't really change much, does it? And it was America's unofficial central bank. They served as the international guardian of the gold standard and halted periodical financial panics from which it profited. Sounds a bit like nowadays, doesn't it? Well, Morgan exerted extraordinary government influence, particularly with the Republicans. During the administration of the 1920s, Morgan routinely represented the US government at international monetary meetings. President Herbert Hoover frequently phoned Morgan's CEO before breakfast. Benjamin Strong, governor of the New York Federal Reserve Bank from 1914 to 1928 and America's most powerful central banker, began his career at a Morgan-associated bank. This Morgan-Fed connection continues today. Before President Reagan named him chairman of the Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan served as corporate director for Morgan. And today, things haven't changed much. Jerome Powell, the current chair of the Federal Reserve, moved to investment banking in 1984 and worked for several financial institutions, including as a partner of the Carlyle Group in 1992. Powell briefly served then as Undersecretary for the Treasury for Domestic Finance under George H.W. Bush, and he left the Carlyle Group in 2005 and founded Seven Capital Partners, a private investment firm. The revolving door between Wall Street and Washington continues to spin. Now let's talk about Nancy Pelosi and how we make money out of this. She's not just a political powerhouse, she's also a powerhouse in the stock market. Her trades are some of the most profitable and closely watched. Her wealth has increased 26 million so far this year. Not bad on a $223,000 salary. Let's break down her recent moves. First up, Broadcom Inc., ticker symbol AVGO. On June 24th, Pelosi bought several $1 million worth of Broadcom stock. And if I show you the Broadcom chart on the screen here, and you can see where I put the arrow in, that is precisely where Madame Pelosi, with no insider information at all, managed to time the bottom of that dip absolutely perfectly and is already up rather significantly on that trade. Coincidence, I'm sure. Next, we have nvidia. I think you know what the ticker for nvidia is. And again, on June 26th, Pelosi bought several $1 million worth of nvidia stock. Let's have a look at that little chart. And, well, is she timing the bottom here? No, not quite. But she's definitely buying this sort of dip and sideways action. I'd call it a consolidation phase. So, again, buying after the drop. And then, well, there is Tesla. On June 24th, Pelosi sold somewhere south of $500,000 worth of Tesla stock. So what's that all about? That wasn't a good call, was it? And does that mean it's all fine in the insider information? Well, the blue vertical line I put in here, that's where she sold. Now, we don't, of course, know exactly what she was holding or why she sold. Maybe she sold to do something else with the money, which might be the next stock we look at. But yeah, it doesn't sound like a great move, right? Because the stock really, really exploded after that. The next stock is Visa. And on July 1st, she sold between $500,000 and $1 million worth of Visa stock. So let's have a look at the Visa chart. And was that a good move? Well, you know what? That was probably selling down here. It's probably kind of a stop loss type situation where she's just like, okay, let's just get out of this. Now, she might have gotten in earlier on and still made a profit. It's entirely possible if she bought somewhere down there, might still have been a profit. But it's probably that. It's probably a trigger, a stop loss, and super, super important to have those. But I honestly don't think these trades are random. They're calculated, they're strategic, and they're often based on information that the average investor doesn't have access to. But you don't have to be left in the dark. You don't have to be a corrupt official abusing your powers and your information. And, there is investors, congressmen buying Intel stock, for example. And then, the US goes and funds their plants and all of that. It's corruption. I mean, there's not really nothing else you can say about that. It's bizarre that this still goes on. But remember, next week, I'm hosting the first ever 3-day masterclass where I'll teach you what I learned working in banking, what trades to open and when, how to automate profit taking and risk management, so you too can trade and potentially make money in just 3 hours a week like Winston and I do. Head over to felixprehn.com/masterclass, the first link down below in the description, and grab your free seat to that event. And by understanding these moves of these influential figures, of course. I didn't mean to say corrupt. Did I say corrupt earlier on? I take it all back. Upstanding members of society, heroes, all that kind of stuff. And by looking at this, you gain some insight. And that can help you make more informed decisions. Like, I look at dark pool trade data. I look at a bunch of things. And they're indicators. They help us make better decisions. And who knows? Maybe Winston will sniff out the next big trade for us. And we will, of course, share it with you. And we thank you for watching. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to abuse the various buttons in front of you so you don't miss an update. And remember, visit felixprehn.com/masterclass and join our seminar next week. Take care. Tom Lee famously just predicted a 15,000 point S&P 500, so I dug deep into his research and I'm about to unveil to you his top 5 stocks.